They say property investing is a game of finance with bricks thrown into it. On tonight's session, we unpacked with two absolute legends in the investing space. So Jane Slack-Smith and Jenny Mole, who have built their own impressive portfolios, and also Jane's been educating people for close to 2 decades. What we unpacked on this session was something you will not unlikely to see replicated anywhere else. We looked at the things that are holding people back in their property investing journey, those mindset tips and tactics, and we did a special uncovering of a scenario with our very own Jeff, me. We unpacked some of those key questions you need to be asking yourself as to why your property investing is not going further. And there were some key tools, tactics, and frameworks to keep you moving forward and asking yourself those key mindset questions. This has been a great must-watch session for anybody looking to grow a scalable portfolio. Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Miles, and together with Joe Tucker, we've created Australia's largest property Facebook community with over 76,000 property investors. Each week we interview top property experts and go along, and you get to be seated part of that. Let's dive into this session with Jane Slack-Smith from Your Property Success, who's been educating investors on property investing for close to 2 decades, and Jenny Mole, who herself has built over a $2 million property portfolio. What do you see that most people are struggling with typically in their investing journeys? Is it those borrowing capacity, or is it more nuanced reasons? And
yeah, look, it's very easy to give a flippant reply that says, yeah, it's borrowing capacity. It's, I don't have the time to do the research. I don't earn enough. Everyone else got lucky because I invested years ago. There's new taxes here. There's, everyone else had a first home buyer's grant. I can't get it. Like, you can look at those external factors, and I mean, let's face it, some of them are absolutely legitimate. The banks are going to look at you and they're going to say, what do you earn? What do you owe? What can you do? Right. And they're going to, as a mortgage broker, I had a client who slept on his couch and rented his bed out on Airbnb to get his first deposit. And I met up recently with another client. I wrote his first mortgage in 2007, and he was living in a garden shed in Darwin, and to save money. And I had to go and argue to the bank why we didn't have to put down a typical rent into the rental borrowing capacity. And, I found a lender that was going to take it, and he got the first money and he bought the first property investment. And, he reached out to me last week. He's doing well. He's got this incredible job. He's no longer living in a shed. He's got a portfolio, and we're talking about his next property. And so, I think, what the beautiful story that Jen shared is pain is inherent in life. So just write this down, everyone. Pain is inherent. We are having a human existence here where there's a COVID, where there's separations, where there's job losses, where there's economic downturn, where we can't get a deposit. But suffering is optional. So it's how you deal with that. And, Jen's taken this moment of the shit show that she had to go through and gone, no, not for me. I'm going to step up here. I'm going to find a way. It's only $100,000. How can I keep the portfolio? And sometimes I think
thought of robbing a bank, but I also thought the time wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, well, they don't take on that too well. Actually, I mean, robbing the bank was one of the suggestions in the chat when we did post about how can you improve your borrowing capacity, along with some other interesting answers. But I see people struggle, but I also see, I appreciate the hustle that some do. And as a mortgage broker and property investing coach and educator, etc., there is a hustle that is legal, and there's a hustle that's fraudulent, like some of the other things that people said, find a broker who will, forge your income statements, or, don't declare a child on your lifestyle. But the reality is that, you know, my first investment property, we thought we were pretty clever. We bought 2 properties side by side. One was my husband's, one was mine, because I didn't want a man to be my financial plan. I wanted to do it all individually. You know, I was, 31, and I was, going to crack it myself. And so we thought they'd pull out one bathroom and one kitchen and do one house, and then they'd do the other. First rainy week 2, they put out both kitchens. So for 6 months, I was going to work covered in plaster dust. We only had a microwave and a kettle. We didn't have any money to walk 2 streets down to Lygon Street and have a nice dinner. Like, if we were going to do something special, it'd be like the lamb's kebab. Like that was a night out, because every cent was going into this thing. And so, we slept on the floor sometimes, and the painter said, we've just painted the room. The fumes are so bad, you can't sleep there. Go to a hotel. I'm like, don't have the cash for the hotel. So it's, you're thinking laterally. If you can't, I couldn't afford this beautiful bath that I wanted. And I'm like, okay, we're pulling out a kitchen. Do you think someone would buy that? And I put it on Gumtree for $600, and someone bought it, and I got my bath. So you kind of, when you step outside the box of the typical thinking, and that's, I've got a podcast called Exit the Matrix. It's about stepping outside the box, that, and looking at the sliding doors where people can actually go, okay, so, I've been dealt this. How am I going to respond?
Yeah.
When we're in a state of stress, exactly what Jen said, we get to choose how we're going to react. And when we're in stress, we get something that has tipped off our amygdala. And then we have 3 seconds before it goes to our prefrontal cortex, where reasoning happens. Now, we're in a state of stress, it doesn't go there. What it does is it essentially goes to a box of stories that we have from the past, maybe not the stories that we want to repeat, but the familiar stories. And our energy efficient brain jumps in there and goes, quick, where's the story in this index that I've got in my past that I can now know what action I'm going to take? So, people who are always dating the wrong people, or losing money, or buying the wrong property, or, getting looked over jobs at work, how you do anything is how you do everything. There's an underlying belief there that we're going to take Jeff through an exercise and expose. But exactly what Jen said is that the neuroscience is now caught up to the personal development work of the Sufis and Socrates and everyone, who basically said your thoughts and feelings are not real. So what you think,
they're everything.
You go into this little box. So in actual fact, we take in 400 billion pieces of information a second, but we have the capacity to actually process 2,000. And how do we quickly get to the 2,000? What's been our experience in the past? So we're stuck in the past always. We're just repeating stuff. And it's not until you're not stressed that you can actually look at being creative, connecting the dots that other people do. And I know what stress is like. I had doing a renovation. So I've done multiple renovations and helped thousands of people with their renovations and buy property, even though I stopped buying myself in 2006. And I remember we're in the middle of renovating this property in this house in eastern suburbs, and this plumber came and said, the toilet out the back in the laundry goes to ground. There was no sewerage connected. I'm like,
Okay.
What? Oh my God, what are we going to do? We're going to have to rip up the path. We're going to have to put in the sewerage. I dealt with the situation with, what do? I'm going to deal with how to deal with this. If I'd stepped back and hadn't been stressed, I'm like, do I need a second toilet? And I wasn't in that state. I was in the stress reaction state. How do I fix this $8,000 later? So, what Jen says is so important is our we get to choose. And our thoughts and feelings, when they come up, they're actually an indicator that we are in one of the old stories, or the repeats of maybe what we don't want.
Yeah.
So if you've got this underlying kind of assumption, not enough, no capacity, what do you do to deal with that? When this comes up for you, do you stop the blog, stop the career coaching, stop? Is that the typical kind of action that you do?
Yeah, I suppose it's a motivation loop. There's sort of what'll happen is it'll come in bursts, and I'm like, And I've sort of been finding recently with a lot of this stuff, I've been not stopping as much. So I don't know what's driving that. And I think what it is actually talking about it more and asking people for help and saying, hey, look, I'm struggling. I need a bit more help here, and actually being comfortable with asking for that help. I know we're not supposed to go to solution mode. Sorry, but
that's perfect, because what you see in this conflict, right, and in your past experiences, is that there is a bit of shame and embarrassment. Like, you should have this nailed, right? And let's just say it's unrealistic in some people's minds who are listening to this, going, mid-30s and you're doing okay, buddy. Like, it's all right. But we put all that aside, because there is this kind of judgment of going, how can I complain when there's other people going so badly? Like, and if you've had some experience in having what we're going to call failures in, achieving things, because we know that what you've done so far is successful here, but if you've given up in the past, then you do have this kind of like, not this time. The world is really going to punish me. Like, there is punishment for people who don't put in the effort. I'm going to put in the effort. And if that means that in front of hundreds of people, I'm going to vulnerably share this and ask for advice or see something that I haven't seen before, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask experts about, what do they do? What is the way around this? And, this just gives you the opportunity to go, well, if I don't feel I have the capacity, and in the past when I've hit this stumbling block and I've given up, and the end result is I've given up on my dreams, my hopes, my chances, and I decide I have this choice, to Jen's point, I now have a choice where I go, when those thoughts that come up that say there's no other way, I've tried it all, and where I'm feeling that I'm a failure, that's just me going back into my old beliefs of, I don't have the capacity enough. I actually now choose to ask for help or look externally. And going to the neuroscience, if we can get into our parasympathetic, which is our, rest and digest, and our way that our body actually allows us to have, our eyes dilated and our lungs, open, and our brain open to new opportunities and connection, all of that, then you can actually go, okay, there is something I can do. In actual fact, when I have hit my borrowing capacity, maybe the number is too much, or maybe just looking at the properties that I have and going, I don't have to hold on to these. It's not a failure to sell them, which is essentially what you said in the beginning. I've sold them before, but, I've built these. I'm in my 30s. I shouldn't have to sell. Well, if there's a better opportunity, there could be. Or you don't buy the property. You do something innovative. You do something that's unusual. You have people who've listened to this and going, well, actual fact, I want him on my side to help me find a property, find a deal, put it together. And what are the things that you have that other people don't have that you can bring to the party? So this exercise, as brief as it is, the opportunities that it gives us is just to expose the golden snitch that's below, which is, I believe that the world is going to punish me if I fail. I see myself on this path of failure. I'm kind of embarrassed to call it that because other people are doing it so tough. But normally, or I've had a really blessed life. I've had a lot of opportunities. I've taken them. When I failed, I kind of bowed out quietly and no one's really seen it. This is very public. I'm doing things differently now because I want to not fail and give up. I'm going to do things that are going to allow me to have that financial freedom that I want. Maybe the number's too big. I don't have to sell short on my goals, but maybe I can do things and attract things that aren't the typical increase your income or reduce your costs or sell a property. So this now gives you that kind of opportunity to step into what else can I do?
Yeah.
See, one of the simple things that people can do is ask like the 5 whys. So for instance, I had someone ring up recently and said, I knew that I was going to have you as a mentor when I got to my 7th investment property. And I was like, 7 properties, what's your number? Didn't know the number. So we just parked that and did a vision session of what the number was. And I said, why? And he's like, well, it gives me safety and security. I was like, maybe he hasn't had safety and security. Let's park that. And it's like, but why do you need that? So my family is safe. Okay, so let's park that. So why? The fifth why, I'm bored at work. So you're going to spend $1 million because you're bored at work? Like, what makes you get up in the morning, makes you excited? Well, I have this side hustle. It doesn't bring in a lot of money, but I'm helping keep kids off the street. Makes my heart glow. He's shone. I'm like, how about we work on that? You know, yes, we can get your seventh property. I can do a deal review for you. You can look at what buyers agents are referring to you and yada, yada, yada. But this is more exciting. This is your purpose. How about we work on that? So just ask yourself the whys. It's like, why do I think I have to have the next property? Why do I think I have to have the red sports car? Like, if you're self-referential.
5 times, guys, just so you don't miss it. 5 times. Just in case. You got to drill down.
You don't give a shit what other people think. You're like, I'm okay. If you just do this 30-second exercise, and it's like, we all have money stories, right? But this 30-second exercise, you close your eyes, you wake up tomorrow, everyone's gone. Your friends, your family, the world. There's enough power, food to keep you going. You go through the grief, everyone's dead. Are you going to live in the mansion? Or are you going to live in a nice little home where you can have your own little veggies and wander around through the forest? You're going to need the Gucci shoes and the handbag, or are you going to be, wearing your boots? Like, if everything's gone tomorrow and what other people's opinions of you doesn't matter, what do you really want? Have a think about that.
Yeah.
A very big theme that I've noticed, and talking about the 20% deposit and those, everybody wants to know how. Everyone wants to know the strategy. But 9 times out of 10, they've gone through, they'll list several different options. I could do this or I could do that. And when I say, what are you trying to achieve? Oh, I haven't figured that out yet. So what I find is that when I remain focused on, and I break things down, so it doesn't mean that it's the 30-year time goal, but when I stay focused on what I'm actually trying to achieve, that is when I see the multiple ways to achieve it. But because what happens is people put their blinkers on with the strategy, they miss out on so many things, and they just see what other people are doing. Yeah. You don't have to do it how other people are doing it. I haven't done anything how anyone else has done it. And, I might not be uber successful or anything like that, but, mate, I'm chugging along through stuff, and I'm still kicking goals in ways that I never thought was possible. And I haven't got anyone coaching me. I told my daughter I was coming on here with Jane and Jeff the other day, and she's like, cool, Mum. Like, that's the support, Like,
I told my 16-year-old son, I said, this is a great group. What these guys have done, they've got tens of thousands of people. He said, bet no one watches. I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
How are you going to argue with a 16-year-old boy, right?
Exactly. So there's not really much motivation. I am it. I am my own motivator. I have to motivate myself. I have to be creative. I have to do all of those things. And one of the tools that I use, I mind map a lot because I work through very complex situations, where there's so many moving parts, and in the amount of times that, and I'm sure people can relate to this. Yeah, but if I do that, but I can't do that. Yeah, but what about that? And everyone just says, I'm out. Too hard basket. Okay. So mind mapping, which is a matter of putting in the middle what it is. I want to borrow more money. All right, cool. But just write. Don't think, write, because it comes from a different part of the brain. So when you're trying to write the thing, so you could come up with anything. You could come up with your kid. And it's like, well, there's no judgment. You just mind map and you dump everything that comes to mind in that moment on a whiteboard it. And then you can start to pull things apart. This is what mind mapping does. It pulls all of the intricate pieces that are surrounding it out and allows you to actually visualize it. That's all.